All right. Hey, everybody. I am here with entrepreneur, polyglot, amazing, inspiring woman, Ami Valdemoro. She's in Manila. So, hey, Ami.
Hello. Hi, Marcy. Hi, everyone.
Okay, so let's get down to it. I know you because of your work with Leader of Light, but looking into your background, you have a very, very interesting background. You grew up all over the place. You speak, I don't know, 100 languages. No, five? Is it five, six? Um, and
Something like that. Yeah.
yeah, so tell us where you were born and, tell us about your upbringing.
Sure. Like many Filipino Americans, I was born in the great state of New Jersey.
Jersey girls.
But I moved around yeah. Um, but I moved around a lot as a kid. So I basically went from New Jersey to Texas. So I did basically elementary school in Texas. And then when I was 11, we moved to Mexico City. So I did middle school in Mexico and then moved to Miami for high school. So I made a huge circle. Um, and yeah, spent most of my time, with the exception of Texas, on the East Coast, and then went to school in Washington, D.C., and then did my graduate school in Boston. So all over the place. And
Oh
I
my
carry a little
gosh.
bit of each of those places with me.
Was it hard, like growing up, moving around a lot? Was it hard making friends or finding roots and stuff like that?
Absolutely. I think, I was very comfortable where I was at in Texas. I had a really good, close group of girlfriends, and then I felt like I was just uprooted. I spent most of the first year we lived in Mexico just like really
Hmm.
uh, not in a good headspace because I was in a completely different culture, trying to adjust and find my way. And, at the time, I think it was challenging, but I think it also gave me some skills that I've found useful as an adult, like being able to observe things, being able to understand environments that other people who are like really immersed in it and deeply ingrained in it might not be able to
Hmm.
see. And it also brought out this gift for languages, and being able to communicate with people or trying to find ways to communicate and understand other people and cultures. So I'm thankful for that.
Very cool. So it's hard enough being a kid moving around so much. What about your Filipino-ness? Because you're moving around, and second of all, like your parents are both Filipino. So what was that like being the little brown girl in all these places? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think the first time that I recognized that I wasn't like a blonde haired, blue eyed girl like most of my school classmates was when we were drawing. This is in elementary school. And everybody was like picking out the crayon that they were going to
Hmm.
draw themselves with. And I was like, okay, so maybe I'll pick the crayon, but I'll like draw it darker. Like I will take like the peach crayon and draw it a little bit darker. And then I was like, no, that's not right. And then I took a brown crayon and I was like, well, that's not exactly right either. So I made this like weird, you know, amalgamation of, of colors. So I think that's when I really realized that I was somewhat different. And I grew up in mostly like white suburban neighborhoods where I was maybe the only Filipina or one of a few
Hmm.
Filipinas or Filipino families. Um, and my parents didn't really speak Tagalog to me at home unless they were like, when we were out in public and they like didn't want anybody to understand what they were saying, they would speak to me in Tagalog. Or if they got like really frustrated with me,
Hmm.
they would speak in Tagalog. But I grew up mostly speaking English at home. I think I came into trying to understand more my Filipino ness when I went to college. So I was
Mm.
part of Club Filipino at Georgetown. We did all of the we put on a show every year called Bayanihan, and we did, the traditional dances and kind of did skits around Filipino culture. And that was really where I tried to understand a little bit more about what it means to me. But then you also found that the Filipinos would tend to hang out together. And I,
Mm.
being someone who is used to being an outsider all the time, it's hard for me to fit myself in a box. So I would hang out with the Pinoys, but I would also hang out with other groups too.
Right, right. Oh, you meant like the groups kind of tended to hang around together. I think like a lot of
Hmm.
Asian cultures as well, that's what happens. I mean, my kids who are half, right? Half Filipino, half white, they ask, hey, how come the Asians are sticking together? I don't know. Because they're like, well, I can go here, I can go there, you know. So that's interesting. Where do you think this, you're so confident. Like I'm just looking at you right now and you exude confidence. Where do you think that came from?
Oh, girl, that took a long time. I'm confident now, but it was not like this.
Oh
I was
wow,
not
cool,
always
cool,
like
cool.
this. Um, I mean, I think at a certain point, you just come into your own skin. And again, it's a journey and a process. Like, like I came into my skin maybe 3 seconds ago in the whole story of my life.
Nice, nice.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's being confident and comfortable with who you are and what you came from, and understanding that each of us has gifts that the world is waiting for us to share, and it's just having the courage to share them and be okay with doesn't necessarily mean it's everybody's gonna
Yeah.
value that gift in the same way, but yeah,
Oh, that's good advice. It'll happen, kids. Just wait and
it
explore
will.
and be like Ami. She's traveled around. I think that helped, right? Just traveling and observing other people and adapting to your different situations. So tell us about your college life. You went to Georgetown, right?
I
And what
did.
did you
Hoya
take?
Saksa.
What did you take?
um, So I majored in international politics,
Mhm.
or some people might call it
Why?
international relations.
What did you want
Why?
to be? What did you think you wanted to be?
Okay. At the time, like many people who are in that field, I thought I wanted to work for the United Nations because I thought that that was like the pinnacle of being able to do diplomatic work and to try and bridge the gap between cultures. Part of it is because I had these experiences growing up
Mhm.
where, for example, in Mexico, I was surrounded with third culture kids, other kids who had moved
Mm,
around as well, who, found their tribe not by like ethnic roots, but by experiences
ex-
that they shared with other people. And I thought if we could function in this way and I could make lasting friendships with people from all walks of life, like why can't we do that at a larger scale, right? So that's why I ended up studying international relations. And it was against the current of, pursuing traditional fields, I suppose. Like this is again where my kind of Filipino family
yeah.
influence came in, right? It's not trying to study to be a doctor or a business person or, one of
A
the kind
doctor,
of traditional
engineer,
fields.
lawyer, doctor, engineer,
Yeah,
lawyer, and nurse. And your mom's a nurse, right?
she is. She
See,
is.
so yes, not a nurse, guys. Not all of us are nurses, but we thank all those that are nurses, especially now. Um, okay, so you thought you'd work at the UN, and did you try like did you work in that space at all?
So my first job out of college was working for the Global Health Department of the
Mm.
American Cancer Society, which at the time was the largest volunteer health organization in the country. And they had a small global health department that was doing
Uh-oh.
public health work. Thought, for me to try and do this work. I was able to work in countries in Latin America and sub-Saharan Africa that were French speaking, so I got to use my language skills. I got to
Mm.
travel, which was a huge bonus for me, and I got to feel like I was making a difference in other countries. That was really valuable to me, and it was at a time when it was just at the start of what would become the Great Recession, so in the mid aughts, like 2006, 2007.
Yes.
um, So, I ended up staying there and doing that work for 5 years, which I think for a millennial is atypical.
Yeah, and
I
first
wasn't one of those
job.
that
Yeah,
like,
first job.
yeah,
That's yeah. But that sounds like a really cool job, and you probably felt like um, you're doing something that makes a difference. So it sounds like now, okay, you're in this space, but I'm sensing you're getting pulled towards nonprofit too. Was that something you were aware of, that that was something you wanted to do?
yeah. So I'm in college. I also interned for a number of nonprofit
Mm.
organizations. And I thought that I didn't really feel the calling to work within government.
Mm.
It could be partly because of who was in power at the time. Like if you had asked me and I was in school in 2000, but I didn't feel called to work in government. And business at the time, it wasn't like now where there might have been a movement towards like social impact and
Right.
business for good, but it wasn't so apparent at that time. So I thought that the third sector, the nonprofit sector, was the sector where I feel like I could um, make a difference and where I felt called.
Oh, how cool. Okay. So, see, I'm building up to your big move to the Philippines that maybe some Filipinos who live in the US won't understand. So, you decided to go to grad school. Were you still at Global Health when you entered grad school? And you can drop the name now of where you went to grad school.
We call it the H bomb. So yes, so I got my master's degree at Harvard, but there's a big but there. Okay. Before I got in there, I was rejected from something like 20 law schools because at a certain point, I thought I wanted
Ooh.
to become a lawyer. I was doing a lot of policy work and I thought, okay, I'm an advocate for public health. Maybe the best way to become a better advocate is to be a lawyer. In hindsight, it was a good thing I didn't get into law school because that's not exactly, I mean, my
Yeah.
impression of what a lawyer does is not exactly what I ended up doing. So, yeah, so following that kind of process of realizing that law school and I are just, not compatible, I got my master's in public policy from Harvard.
Oh, cool. Okay, so now you've got that. You sure love school for one thing. What did you think you were gonna do? Like, what was the plan for that? With that degree, what was your plan?
Yeah, so things kind of all happened at once. So when I learned that I was accepted into the program, we also learned that our department was being awarded the first big grant, we considered a big grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who was
Mhm.
investing in non-communicable disease work. So for those who
Right.
aren't familiar, they did a lot of work at the time with TB, with malaria and AIDS, but this is the first time they were investing in cancer stuff. So they wanted us to run a program in sub-Saharan Africa. And I thought, this is it. Like, this is what I want to be doing. And I was part of the
Nice.
group that brought in that work. So I deferred my school for a year and decided to help get that program up and running. And then when I went into school, I thought, I'm okay to go back and do work in sub-Saharan Africa. I really enjoyed the time that I spent building relationships with my colleagues and getting some important work done. So, I wasn't sure if I was going to go back to public health or if I was going to focus on something else, but I really thought that I was going to move to sub-Saharan Africa after graduate school.
Little did you know that not Africa, but another equally exotic location called to you. So yeah, talk about that. How she moved to, tell us why you moved to the Philippines, and then the work you did after that in the Philippines, because it's what brought you and your partner together. Really, is the work for Leader of Light. So let's segue. Take it away, Ami.
Sure. So I met my partner when we were both in graduate school. He is also Filipino, born and raised here in the Philippines. Um, and in spite of my, idea that I was going to move to sub-Saharan Africa, I fell in with someone, and it wasn't only, someone that I had found, someone who challenged me, that I could spin ideas off of, that was ambitious and kind of uninhibited in this ambition to try and make the world a better place, which is kind of, why we ended up where we are, at grad school, but also in the work that we do. And, I hadn't really had a lot of experience working or understanding like Asian, Southeast Asian, Philippine culture. So what brought us together initially was this work, right? This work to be able to help people to build solar lights, to empower themselves and communities. So I was introduced to this concept of social enterprise, which was different than the traditional nonprofit work that I was doing. And at the time, this was around 2012, 2011, 2012. There was a lot of interesting stuff happening here in this region and in the Philippines, like social enterprises really taking off. And unlike a lot of places that came into it later on, there were a lot of young people who had these interesting ideas about, for example, how to empower weavers, traditional textile communities, how to, create products whose profits would, go on to help, say, agricultural communities, or to address gaps in education. And it was just a time and a place where you could do creative things.
How
and
exciting.
I felt like that was missing. Yeah, it was super exciting. I mean, I feel like that's what it took for me to make that decision to, kind of shift my plans from moving to sub-Saharan Africa and nonprofit work into doing something that was a little bit more unknown, right, to me and to the people who were creating these projects.
Wow. So I'm curious, like the whole Filipino aspect of it, because I suspect had you fallen in love with, anyone else or whatever, you might have moved for love to any other country. But the fact that it was in the Philippines, this work was in the Philippines, how did that feel? Yeah. Uh-oh. We are stalling, everybody. Okay, there. There's a lag.
Well, I mean, maybe much to the chagrin of slowest internet in Asia. So yeah, I mean, I tend to think about things. I lead with the heart in my biggest decisions. I knew that I wanted to do this. Some anxiety around, okay, so what do you, when you get there, you haven't actually lived there, like you look like you're from there, you might look like you know how things work there, but you don't.
Yeah.
I didn't really speak Tagalog, so like there was that whole thing about how to speak and communicate with people here. But I thought, at the time, it just seemed like it was the right time to try and make this move. There was a level of comfort around, I'm familiar with some of the traditions of, Filipino homes and our culture, but to be honest, it probably would have been more difficult if I had moved to like Kenya or South Africa, where I don't have these roots.
Very cool. So to explain to people, the company we're talking about is Leader of Light, which is it a nonprofit technically? Okay.
Yes.
And then let's explain social enterprise. When we say social enterprise, like for me, the first thing that comes to mind is like Tom's shoes, right? That is a social enterprise. So buy a pair of shoes and a pair of shoes goes to someone in need. So describe that the social enterprise model and how it applies to Leader of Light.
Sure. So there are a lot of different models that can be social enterprises. I think that for those folks who are in the US, the closest thing that would be a social enterprise is something called a B corporation.
Mhm.
So there's a designation that's given to companies like Tom Shoes, right, who have a model around they'll take either all of the proceeds or a percentage of their profits from the sales of their products, and they'll reinvest them in the communities where they work. Um, that is so another model that is social enterprise, which is along the lines of Leader of Light, is the Habitat for Humanity model. So with Habitat for Humanity, or even Gawad Kalinga, which is our local equivalent here in the Philippines, they'll work with private companies who will pay for the experience on, say, building houses, or in the case of Leader of Light, building solar lights, right? So we're offering training, corporate social responsibility projects, volunteer opportunities, and when we get revenue from that, right? So it's not just like in traditional nonprofits, you would be applying for grants, you would be applying for kind of prizes or soliciting
Fundraising, yeah.
donations, fundraising. It's a different sort of model. And that's, the Habitat for Humanity or Gawad Kalinga model. That's really the model that Leader of Light is modeled after.
Very cool. So that's just a teaser. We promised to interview the mysterious partner. Disclosure, one of my oldest friends. So we'll talk about that next time. Let's go back to Ami. So you're back in the Philippines. What is one of the biggest culture shock things for you working and living in the Philippines?
Oh, okay. I'll just go with the one that came to my mind first. Okay, so in my other work settings where I worked with Americans, where I worked with people from sub-Saharan Africa, I was known as a diplomat. Like, I was known as someone who was kind of even-keeled, who would say things that wasn't so abrasive, which is sometimes what like the dating or the perception people have of Americans, right?
Yeah.
When I came to the Philippines, I was like the direct person. Like, I would say things just as they were, and people were like shocked that I would say things out loud instead of, like, I don't know, going around about it 20 ways. And I ruffled some feathers because I was like, I wasn't trying to be abrasive, but I'm just used to having, I guess, more open lines of communication or airing out things that I think are challenging or things like this. And maybe it was like subcultures that I was working in that was just not the way things are done. So I think that's probably the biggest
Wow.
culture shock thing that I came across. And it still happens now, although I think I've softened a little bit.
They're like, ay, Americana kasi. Probably.
Yes,
Well, at least
that.
at least you
They're
get that's an excuse at least. So what's one of the things that like a different thing that's in the Philippine setting that you kind of welcomed?
So I think I knew this before coming here, but it's been magnified since I have lived here, which is this concept of care and this concept of family and closeness. And I think it's something that I was seeking as someone who moved around a lot and whose roots went like this instead of like this. So I really appreciated that. And I think, whenever there's somebody who is in need, whether you know them personally or not, Filipinos are always willing to jump in and help, no matter where you are, right? So if it's like Manang crossing the street and someone sees her and she's carrying groceries, someone will help her cross the street, right? Obviously, you can see examples of what happens when typhoons hit, right? These latest two typhoons, I mean, people are just ready. The flip side of that is that they're ready because they feel like nobody else is going to help. So there are some challenges in that, but I think that's just a wonderful thing, a wonderful trait about Filipinos that we see not just here, but also around the world, right? Our frontliners all over the world are Filipino, and we're showing that same care for people no matter where we are.
Oh, yes, that's true. So it is an odd year. We are in a pandemic and mostly locked down for most of the year. What are some things that you've learned about yourself during this time? So before pandemic, you would travel a lot, right? Because if there would be Leader of Light builds around the world, you would travel to that and all that stuff. So what have you discovered about yourself? What did you, as a business person, what did you do differently?
So we have the dubious distinction of being, I think, the country under the longest lockdown. Like we're still technically in lockdown now, nine
Oh, we're
months
just
later.
getting back to it now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always, I mean, I'm an introvert by nature, so I appreciate time alone to kind of recharge and reflect and introspect. Um, and I think it, you know, this whole thing gave us an opportunity or an invitation to be still, which I appreciate. I also think part of my like way of being able to go through this is to not have an idle mind.
Hmm.
Um, I think, because we were so used to traveling, like I think this is the longest I've ever spent in the Philippines since I moved here. But we've come up with projects, projects that keep us busy, that help other people in our like home bubble keep busy also and feel like they're doing things that are meaningful. And then it also like lit a fire under my bum, I guess, in terms of, you know, projects that I'd been thinking about, but was a little bit unsure about starting. It kind of put into relief that you can't really wait for these things to happen, and that if you have this feeling of urgency and calling to do something, that you should start it. So that's really yeah, that's the biggest learning I think I've had, and that's why I ended up launching Moxy Gal in the middle of this
Woohoo! Nice
pandemic.
segue. Yeah, and I think you're right about slowing down. It makes us realize what things are important, right? Because normally we're so busy, like you don't have time to do this because you're going from one appointment to the other. And I know what it's like in Manila, just the traffic. You waste so much time. So it's like now you have time. What are you going to do with this time? And so you launched a new business. uh, Tell us about Moxy Gal. Moxy Gal, because she's got Moxie, guys.
Yeah. That's right. So I'm a huge fan of Wonder Woman and Rosie the Riveter, which I think is a reference that Americans will get, but that I still have to explain to Filipinos. They're like, "What, Rosie? What?"
You tell
So
them the one
it's
that
this
looks like
feminine
the
icon from the one that goes like that, and they're like, "What?" Yeah, so it's this image of a woman who rolled up her sleeves and got to work in the middle of a crazy time, right? Crazy time in World War II, when we weren't sure what was going to happen, when were being called to serve, and a lot of women found their voice, right? Not that they didn't have one, but they were able to use
yeah.
it for a broader good.
Mhm.
So I was inspired by that, and it stems from work that I did. In addition to my other hats that I wear, I also teach
Mhm.
and train young professionals across Asia. So one of the things that I noticed is that a lot of young women who are incredibly bright and have, you know, um, fantastic, audacious ideas for how they want to improve their community, for some reason, right? Just like me, they're afraid to do it. They're
Mhm.
afraid because they don't want to defy expectations, because they're afraid of failure, because we've been socialized to try and always do the right thing.
Mhm.
Um, and do the right thing, not just for ourselves, but for our families, for our communities, right? And so we get stuck in this, in pursuing what is like the right path,
Mhm.
until some of us wake up and realize that that's not actually the path that that we want to take. So Moxy Gal is a coaching business, right? So coaching young women to develop the courage and confidence they need to pursue goals that they define for themselves. So whether it's starting a new business, or trying to reach the top of their fields or getting into their board of directors of their local charity, right? It's being able to help shepherd them through that process and kind of unlocking some limitations that they have placed on themselves, right? Or that other people have placed on them that they feel inhibit them from pursuing these crazy ideas.
So it's a personal coaching, it's one-on-one. But I do know because I clicked around and you have classes they are online and people can sign up for it, right? Like for the Center of Asia or something. What's
Yes,
it called?
so I'm a teaching fellow with the Center for Asia Leadership. It was started by a classmate of mine from Harvard,
Oh, nice.
and what they do is they do trainings on a host of different topics, from like leadership to how to communicate with empathy to how to think like a futurist. So I do quite a lot of work with them, and some of that stuff you can find online. I think I did a webinar on how to communicate in times of uncertainty. And then there's another one on how to communicate when the world is falling apart. I think
Ooh,
is
how
the title of the talk.
timely.
So yeah, that's the latest one that I did with them. So that's, I think,
Wow.
up as well on their YouTube site or on their LinkedIn
Yeah, I
site.
think you have to sign up on Center for Asia and then you get it. I'm sure there's an increase for classes because we are home. And you know what? If you can improve yourself, go ahead, take that class, whatever it is, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, as a coach, what do you think, as a coach and a woman, what do you think is the biggest stumbling block for women to do what they want to do?
Maybe I'll take my own example because I can't really step into the shoes of other women, but I think this will probably resonate. Um, I think I think it's trying to quiet the voices in your head that are telling you, and I don't mean that as like a crazy thing. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that we always have different, you know, different things that are telling us, oh, don't do this at this time. You know, you want to be safe, you want to be secure. I mean, they might even like come to us as specific people, right? Like our moms or our titas or our fathers or whoever in our life represents those voices. And I think if we don't give ourselves the space to just do it and not get caught up in the like, what if, then we'll never know, right? So I think that's been a huge learning for me because I like things ironed out and organized and organized, and that, you know, to like maximize my chances of success.
Yeah.
But I think that's also something that my partner, who you know, has helped me with, right? To
Because
understand
yeah, you need someone who will
it
say,
doesn't,
go for it.
yeah, or just do it and then figure it out late. Like it doesn't all have to be figured out now. Do it and then like figure out how to make it better.
Ooh.
So, you know, I think to the extent that women can develop that or nurture that capacity instead of always trying to be the even keel or the vessel for other people, I think that that would be super helpful. I think the
I
world would
think
be a richer
yeah.
place for it.
But that's also a cultural and just how girls are brought up, right? You have to do the right thing. You have a role in the family, like especially in the Philippines, like I'm the eldest, so I'm the ate, you know what I mean? So you have to do something first. And then I was going to say, I think people will be attracted to your coaching, people like moms like me who you kind of put your life on hold when you have kids because that's going to be your life while you're raising them. I've had people come to me and ask, hey, how are you doing all these things? I go, I didn't do them when the kids were little. I was so focused. But then I tried to stay creative while I had them as well. But not everybody's that lucky. They really get so into that they forget themselves. And then they find themselves, oh my God, I'm 40 or whatever. And what did I do? Or what can I do now? So I think it's timely to have like a coach, or I think your coaching is like you're the girlfriend telling your girlfriend, hey, you can do this. It's very valuable, and like you said, super timely right now. And I wish you luck on that front. I look forward to seeing more. I think if you did like mini TED Talks, that would be cool. If you write some things, just so people get a taste of that. And we need more of that. We need more of that moxie in the world. So,
I
what's
agree.
what's next for you for 2021 in this weird year of weirdness? What do you think is going to happen? And personally, what do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? And if things, here's the thing, I don't think things will go back to the way they were. This world is changed, right? What are your thoughts about that, about the world we're facing? And if things will go
Ooh.
back, or should they go back?
Well, I'll start with the easier of the hardest questions first.
Big
um,
questions.
yeah. So I guess my plans around Moxy Gal, it's one-on-one coaching, right? I like being able to have that close interaction with my coachees. But I realize that this problem is perhaps bigger than kind of one person can be able
Mhm.
to do. So my intention is to not just coach more Moxy Gals, but to have them also pay it forward,
Mm.
so that it's not just me, but it's like an army or a cadre, or a posse of Moxy Gals who can then help, like women helping to support other women, right? And then we can reach a scale that is much farther beyond the confines of like me and my computer, I guess, because we're doing a lot of this work online.
I know, yes. One day we shall see each other in person.
One day, yes. And then hopefully it won't be like this awkward, do I make beso beso? Do I
Oh
not?
my
Like, do I
gosh,
still,
yeah.
um, and then in terms of the world as it is, I think it's clear, both because this pandemic happened and because of like certain response to the pandemic, particularly in the US. I mean, I'm American, I can just say it.
Yes.
Um, I think that this is going to force us to change things, and hopefully things can change for the better. I mean, it's obviously surfaced a lot of things other than pandemic that have been issues that have been in our community for a long
Ring.
time. Yeah. And I think we'll get to a new place. I don't know what that I want to call it, a new normal, because I don't even know what normal is anymore.
Yeah.
But hopefully it'll get us to a new place where there's yeah, there's more opportunity, there's more equality, there's more um listening instead of just like news cycle after news cycle. And I think that day will come. I'm hopeful that that day will come, but I think we'll still see like chaos and conflict on the way there. But
Yeah.
I think we'll get there. It just we might have more turbulence before then.
Well, hang in there, people. Thank you so much, Ami. And we will put all the links when I air this live. And you can follow Ami on. You're on Twitter, right? What's your handle?
I am.
I found it.
On Twitter, it's Ami Valdemoro.
I like how it says Ami like salami, guys. Yes, and then where else would you like people to find you?
So you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is I am super Ami. Um, and you can also follow the Moxy Gal. So it's the _ Moxy Gal, and Moxy is Moxy.
Cool. And of course, leader of light. Is it .org? Right? Leader of light
Yes.
is
So
.org.
Leader of Light is much more simple. It's Instagram Leader of Light, Twitter is also Leader of Light. Facebook is a Leader of Light. But yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you. And I hope you have um, an awesome holiday. It's got to be awesome. You're in the Philippines, even if, it's not going to be the large family gathering, but at least you'll have the food.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time and stick around because we can chat offline. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks, Marcy. Thanks, everyone.